So why do you believe that when I look at, let's say, the black community and the versus the white community, most of the white communities, they're led by a lot of business figures, the corporations, versus in the black community, our leaders are the pastors. Why do you think we don't have as much business as a domination? And and I specifically mean like what's going on with these Republicans and I mean with the politicians. You know, we see immediately if the black politicians want to get the black vote, they first go to the churches instead of going to the business owners because the business owners don't have that influence versus in the white community where they do.
This is a question that would have a historical basis, right? Is when the Ku Klux Klan was lynching black people, where did the black people assemble? In the church, right? The church was the focal point of the black resistance and the black movement. And that's something that people remember, right? And it has remained a focal point, a point of strength because of that, because of the historical, You cannot negate the impact that the black church has had in the black struggle. I mean, we just can't negate it. Dr. King was a pastor. His last speech was given at Mason Temple in Memphis, the church. And one reason, because the church was one place where we felt that we could be safe and come together and assemble in safety and come together and develop plans. But we found out that even the church was not respected by those that practice and hate and those that live hate. But to me, that's an easy question to answer. Why is it that they go to the church? It's because they know the church has been the heartbeat in the black community. It has been the strength of the black community, and it has been the place where the black struggle initiated and went. To this day, it still is.
So what would it take, in your opinion, as a person that's being an expert in communication and technology, for us to develop an even stronger base where it's not only the church, but we're also growing, we're using technology and communication to grow our businesses and have more of that, because that's how we can really begin to have more power, is through the economic base.
And I think we've actually tried to do, we're actually doing it here. We built a collaboration group, and where we're entrepreneurs that come in. We want to collaborate and build clientele and build businesses.
It's 3 o'clock.
And see, we can do it from the church. And if people trust the church, and if my hearts and my intentions are correct, then I can actually build some things in the community wide. So I think we need a business structure in our community. The church. I personally, I would like the church to be what the church is for worship. But it wasn't my doing that forced the church to also be the headquarters for the resistance movement. We had to use what we had, right? And we couldn't use businesses, because if businesses were successful, they were attacked. They were demolished, right? But now we're in a different time.
Right.
And the first thing the church has to do is understand that we're in a different time. And then we need to teach, and we need to incorporate an overall holistic structure into what we do every day. I don't come into church on Sunday and just preach and run and hoop and holler, right? There are times when we need to talk about advancing, your position and your place in life and improving where you are. And I think if we as a church spent a little bit more time A little bit more time on the whole person. I know that if we do the spiritual, and I know if we hit the people and people's spirit comes right, that's great, right? Like I told our church a couple of weeks ago, it's good to pray. You know, when you're dealing with depression and anxiety, it's good to pray and ask for healing and deliverance, and have a counselor too, right? Go to a doctor too. Go to deal with that too. And I think what we need to do as a church and as church people is that we need to incorporate. We need to come together and develop plans for improvement.
Now, to develop those plans, it requires, like you said, for us coming together. So one of the questions I'm seeing on here is, what are some essential things Black people could do to really have deeper relationships with each other? And then how would this contribute to the relationship with God?
One thing we can do to have deeper relationships with each other is respect each other, and view each other with as much reverence, and give people as much respect as we'd like to have. Right. And then we understand, and I think you made a statement earlier, that we were Black first. Right. And so we have a commonality around Blackness that we should come together and on that commonality, and then we can improve each other. We need to love on each other. That's just the bottom line. We need to love on each other instead of competing against each other. We should work with each other, and instead of me trying to outdo you, let's work together, and we'll accomplish.
Is there a starting point with that? Because there's so many, with the Black community, we tend to really focus on and blame each other. And people will say, well, it's single Black women's fault, or it's the Black man who's in jail, right? So there's a bunch of division. Right. So where do you see would be that starting point? Get your opinion, but also biblically. I mean, is it based on that hierarchy, the protocol, of God, man, woman, or like what where does it start? Is it the schools? Is it the homes? What is the starting point that you would see?
The starting point for our
foundation
for building that plan is us. It's us. It's all of those places. The school, the poor, the houses. We have to take charge and be responsible for our condition and for our situation. Yes. Now, instead of blaming someone else,
right?
Let's take charge and let's. Now, if I tell you somebody prevented me from doing something, or they won't let me, you better believe they won't let me, because I will have done everything that I could possibly do, and I would have tried to pull everything in. But instead of me blaming everybody else or blaming you, or for this one, we say it's this one's fault, it's that one's fault. I used to always tell the people that reported to me, if you don't have a solution, don't come to me with the problem. Right? So if you tell me that it is the single mother's fault, what solution do you have to actually remedy that? Right? Because the single mothers are there now, and whether it's you're actually correct when you say it's their fault, that's different. But they are there. So what do you bring, or what are you presenting then as a solution? Right? And so it's. How would I say it? For Black people, when you have been pushed down, oppressed, beating up for so long, that there are things that become ingrained and a part of you that you really have to work, you have to get out of you, right? And I say that,
like that detox, letting the venom out.
You got to let that out. You got to let that out. And so instead of, it's easy to say stop blaming, but it's not easy for people that's been blamed all of their lives to actually just stop blaming somebody, point the finger at somebody else. If everybody fixed themselves first, then they would then have the power and the ability to help somebody else. So when we're on the plane, they say if the airbags fall, first put your airbag on, and then help the person that's next to you. And I think I wish I had the answer to get black people to stop blaming each other and to stop looking at faults with each other and to stop and to stop how would I say criticizing each other and trying to take a step up by stepping on somebody else. You know, a lot of it has to be education, but it has to be a comprehensive and a cohesive solution. There has to be a solution in our schools. There has to be a solution in our homes. There has to be a solution in our churches, in our worship places. And all of these have to come together and work together to actually impact this change.
So with all those solutions, and you talking about schools and homes, right? So that makes me think about the children, the youth. So what do you think? Do you think that right now that the church and specifically the Bible is something that is attractive to the youth and as it once was? And if not, why do you think, what can happen to get them more interested and activated with the connection with God?
Well, and I take it that you are talking the black youth.
Yeah, I'm talking black youth.
You're talking black youth because there have been multiple studies that state that black youth are leaving the church. I mean, and I'm sure there have been multiple studies that say that. Is it as attractive? The Bible and Christianity and the church is as attractive to the youth or to the people as we make it. I don't think that we are witnessing black people reject God, but I think we are witnessing black people reject a brand of Christianity that said that a man could blow up a church and kill 4 black girls in the morning, still be a good Christian that evening. Or they're rejecting a brand of Christianity that took $100 trillion in wages from the slaves and told the slave, telling us, the descendants, to get over it, while the descendants of those that took it enjoy and live on the wealth and the riches of it. So I think the church is as attractive to the youth or to anyone as we make it. Now, we need to have a relevant message for the youth today, right? We need to have a relevant message for the children. I was very impressed on Saturday, a young man that bought the book. He said, I read it to my children. He said, I read it, went through it, and I read it to my children. Then he said, would you consider doing a children's version of the book? You know, that shows the positive, that shows our relationship and our heritage with God. Idea. He said, will you do, and then you could give it to children and start training them early on, right? Now, a lot of times, what we learned in the church in the past, and I give our ancestors a lot of credit. They did the best they could with what they had. When you know better, you do better. And I think we have a new revelation today. We have different revelation today. And so we can now reach the generation with things that are relevant to them. And so I think we can make the church and Christianity and God as relevant to the youth as a Beyonce concert, or, you know, we can do that, and we have the power, we have the ability to do that.
So, what do you say, based on even what the Bible says about black people being cursed? That's a big one. That was a big question.
Yeah. Well, okay. I explained that in the book, right? I explained that in the book is that nowhere in the Bible does it mention black people are cursed. As a matter of fact, our blackness is the biggest blessing that could have that we could have, because our blackness actually ties us to our relationship that we have with God. I know they go to this thing where Ham uncovered the nakedness of Noah, and Noah realized what was done, and he cursed Canaan, right? And Canaan was a son of Ham, right? And I explained this in the book, that it doesn't mean and it doesn't mean what people think it means. It obviously means that Ham uncovered Noah's nakedness, and Leviticus lets us know that Noah's nakedness is his wife. So Ham obviously did something with Noah's wife. They produced Canaan. Canaan was cursed. Black people are the descendants of Ham through Cush. And as a matter of fact, the curse that was spoken upon Canaan for that was that he would lose his inheritance, basically. It said he would be a servant of Jason, but in that it wasn't talking chattel slavery. It was saying that he would be a servant, right? And that has nothing to do with black people. That has nothing to do with the Cushites, that has nothing to do with the Mizraim group, which were the Egyptians in Africa, that had nothing to do with the group which were the Libyans in Africa. There's no biblical evidence that God has cursed the black people. As a matter of fact, if you read Amos 9 and 7, God tells Israel, he said, when I was doing these good things for you, he said, I was treating you like I treated the children of the Ethiopians. So he said, when I brought you out of Egypt, he said, I was doing for you what I've done for the children of Ethiopia. So there's no biblical evidence that God has ever done anything but bless the black people. Every black person that I mentioned in this book, we see the blessings of God upon. Every time black people interacted with Israel, primarily, except for the one Pharaoh that treated them wrong before they left. But even then, God said he had to create that Pharaoh to do it, because so he raised him up. Right, so there's no biblical evidence anywhere in the Bible that there is curses upon black people for any reasons. As a matter of fact, from the very beginning, we see that God has shown us, and if we analyze scriptures, we see that the black people were some of the most blessed people in the world. As a matter of fact, God then not only did he say he gave the black people the continent of Africa, which has the vast majority of the world's precious resources that belong to them. So there's no biblical evidence. There's nothing in the Bible that speaks of black people being cursed. It's just not there.
So where do you think the agenda behind these, we'll say, misinterpretations of the, and by the way, too, I want to mention this too, is there a specific version of the Bible that you're referring to in this book? Because there's so many different versions of the Bible. Can you be specific with which one that you're referring to? Are we talking about, because every year the Bible is updated and changed every single year.
Well, there may be a new version, a new translation may come out, not updated and changed. But I'm dealing primarily with the King James Version, and every one of my references there refer back to the King James Version. And I know people will attack the King James versions and the translations and the things that are relevant to King James, but the Bible was inspired by God and written by man. So the inspiration of God, it came through in the writing, regardless of who had it translated and what problems the translator had. So I refer to the King James. In my church, we use King James, NIV, we because some of them are easier reads. But in every one of the scriptures, if you look in the end notes, you will see that a KJV next to it. So I am referencing the King James Version.
Now in here, what I do like, I really enjoy about this book is you made it. It's very simple. It's a very easy read, and you got some illustration. So and you got a picture here of this black man with his eyes are of fire. His hair, he has woolly hair, white hair, and his feet are of brass. And you depicted him as a black man.
Yes.
So why? How do you actually break down in this book? I mean, can you elaborate on your interpretation? Not your interpretation, but the evidence that is here that Jesus was black. As well as the black presence of people in the Bible. The only illustration that we have of Jesus come from Revelation, 1st chapter,
and about the 12th, 13th, 14th verse. And it says that he has feet that are bronze. Now, and bronze like polished brass, fine brass. And if you have bronze feet, you got bronze face and bronze hands and bronze. So your skin is bronze, right? And that bronze is a brown color. It says hair is white, white as wool. And it says he has eyes like fire. And so in that book, we illustrated, when I spoke with my illustrator, I asked her to recreate that and recreate it just like that. And so that is the description that the Bible gives of Jesus as a brown-skinned man with white hair. Now, why would anybody ever change that? Should be the question, right? Because the Bible has told us what Jesus looked like right there. Now, look, God, the Bible lets us know that God is a spirit. And I always get this when I talk about, well, what difference does the color make, right? We as humans, we are in a physical world and in a physical name and we deal with tangible things, right? So we need images to help us relate. So somebody understood early on that if they could change that image and teach you that Jesus looked something different than that, then and put that in you, then when you thought Jesus, you would think of a lighter skinned person with hair that was kind of flat, but that's not what the Bible said. But somebody understood that if I could get you to believe that, right, and get you to do that, so they changed it.
Yeah.
Now, obviously the Bible is the Bible, and it's pretty straightforward that Jesus is who he is. Now, I even asked them to do a very basic experiment, right? Is take a brown object and hide it among other brown objects and find it. And then take a brown object and hide it among pink objects and find it. Which one is easier to find? Take a brown object and put it among pink objects. When Jesus was born and Herod wanted to kill him, God told Joseph, take him to Africa. Took him to Africa where he blended in. So it's not my interpretation. I merely had the illustrator to illustrate what the Bible said about Jesus.
So all of this is first of all, I want to just really again commend you, because I think you did a really amazing job with making this easy and a simple read. And a lot of us don't read. I mean, I look at statistics, and they say that the average person maybe reads one book a year, and if they do read one book, it's just one chapter.
What I probably meant when I said that is I'm not selfishly
of that book. And also, I look at a lot of millionaires that are reading at least one book per month, and so there's something to say about the power of reading. So again, I want to acknowledge not just you but your team, because can you talk a little bit more about how you put this together as a product and the team that helped you create this?
Okay, I want to say, first of all, I rewrote this a couple of times to say, okay, I don't want to say that right now. Because I want this to be a read that people can go through and read it. And I've already started to put together notes to expand on these things, to say some of the other things that we want to do. But we wanted this to be an easy read. We wanted you to come out of this and without any issue, any problem, saying, wow, I see black people from the beginning. I see what God had us doing. I see us at the end. That's what we wanted to do. And so we worked hard to make it an easy read. And I also wanted to appeal to the widest range of viewers. So I have a very excellent, we have a couple of excellent graphic artists that's connected to our church. These lady, the lady that did this book, and I commend her and I acknowledge her very upfront. So Michelle Hudson, she gave me 10 choices to choose from. I immediately said, I'm going to take the one with the silhouette of the black guy with the African with the thing like that. But my daughter-in-law, Larita, project managed this. And she said, no, Pops, we're not doing that.
Yeah.
She said, she said, we're not doing it. She said, you take this. She said, you see that this is the one that we're going to use. It says black, red, green, red, black, and green bars are on the top, on the bottom. And then she said, then if you look at it, it actually is attractive on the cover. So we have a team. And then one of my members did the illustrations for me inside of it. I took her to Kendra Wiley, and she did the illustrations inside of her. And we have T-shirts. We have buttons. I was going to bring you a button. I'll give you one before you leave. T-shirts, buttons, pins that one of our illustrators, Joe Phillips, actually did for us. And so there's a whole team of us that's doing it, because if it had been left up to me, it probably would have been, you know, my book that they asked me to do, the Revelation. That book is now already about 300 pages. And so, and for me to actually do that, I would have to kind of go through it and kind of pull things out. And that's what I had to do. When I teach this in February at our church, it takes me every Sunday and every Tuesday night during the month of February to actually deliver that. So I was really happy that we were able to get it down to 102, 103, 104 pages. And then with the introduction and stuff, it's only 121 pages total. Now, I've told it's an easy read. You can sit there and read it in a couple of hours, a few hours. But if you reference all the scriptures, and we give you references to all of them in the end notes, it could take you a couple of days to go back and get it, but go back and read those scriptures. But you'll come away with an understanding of the purpose and the mission of black people as defined in the Bible. Now, we all black, you can go to any black church and they can tell you what God called Israel to do. But they would not, most would probably could not tell you what God had us to do. And after analysis, I extrapolated our mission by function. The same way that we extrapolate Gabriel's mission and say he's a messenger angel, because God uses him to send a message. Every time we see him in the Bible, he sends messengers. We extrapolate Michael's position and say that he's the fighter. He leads God's army, because that's what we see him in Scripture. So every time we see black people in Scripture, we're always doing the same thing. Protecting God's righteousness. Fighting for God's righteousness. So we can, just like we did with Gabriel and with Michael, we can extrapolate that's our call. So
a person gets this book and they open up their mind and their understanding to the evidence of God's relationship with black people. How does that impact the black community? What does that begin to look like?
It motivates you. It motivates you. How would I say it? When I was a kid, I read a book called The Prince and the Pauper, right? And there were these two kids that looked just alike, except for one was rich and one was poor. They decided to change places, right? Once the guy changed places and he got a feel for being rich, and he didn't want to leave. Right. When you know, if you can come to grips with the knowledge that I am not what they say I am, 3/4 of a man, come from a monkey. I'm not those things, but I am the royalty of God, and I am the people that God first had a relationship with. Then that's got to motivate you to be the best in anything that you can be. It has to motivate you. It has to encourage you. It has now. If I can believe that I'm royalty, I won't accept certain things. Right. I will demand better, right? And I will require better to success. And so when people come to grips with who they are by reading, by starting here, reading this book, I would expect to see, and I say that we could get people to say, why am I out here gangbanging? Mm-hmm. You know, I'm better than that. We're better than that. You know, or why am I flipping hamburgers? I should own the McDonald's.
You should own, exactly.
I'm better than this. So not that I'm going to stop flipping hamburgers, but I'm going to keep flipping them, but I'm going to now implement a plan to own that McDonald's. I had a young lady at our church came to me about 3 weeks ago, a young lady, and she's really into this. And she said, Pastor, I quit my job. And she's in high school. She's in high school. And maybe she thought I was going to get mad. She said, but I was going to work and I took the job. It was at a fast food place. Mm-hmm. I took the job because obviously I needed money, but then I was going to get some experience at work. She said, but I was going there and it just wasn't what I wasn't learning anything. I wasn't doing anything. I would go to work and people would just be all over the place. And she said, I'm like, I have to do better than this because of where I want to go. I commended her because she expected more because she has plans. And so she expects more out of herself, and she expects to accomplish things. So there are expectations she have for even that, for even flipping burgers or saying welcome to the store or whatever. And so when I was in college and I applied for a job at Burger King because I needed the money, right? And the guy looks at me and said, "Well, when are you gonna quit school and come to work here?" I walked out. Because I have higher expectations of myself. Right. This is not the ends of me. This is just a means toward the end, right? And I think when people start to see themselves for who they are, then they start to demand better because they expect better.
As a man thinketh,
and they will do better.
So is he. Absolutely.
That's right. As a man thinking in his heart, so is he. That's exactly right, preacher.
So with that being said, so I got two last questions and we'll conclude, because a lot of what you're saying is based on you guys also, as you begin to change your mind and renew your mind. Now you gotta begin to practice some faith. Mm-hmm. Now I hear a lot of Christians, they say, I can do anything possible through Christ who strengthens me. Mm-hmm. However, I also observe that some of these same people don't actually show that faith within their work, right? They don't actually step out on what they're saying. Mm-hmm. What do you think is a way, as a man who has a team who's actually manifested goals and stepped out on faith, how can we encourage people to have more faith in life?
First of all, you should pay close attention with who you're running with and who you're hanging with, right? If you have goals, if you're ambitious, have goals and have plans, you'd want to surround yourself with people who have goals, ambitions, and plans, right?
Absolutely.
I teach our people that they should have relationships at 3 levels. They should have relationships with people that they can help. They should have relationships with people that they can help pull up. Mm-hmm. They should have relationships at their level, so that they can encourage, motivate each other. And then they should have relationship higher up from people that can help them up, give them advice and give them counsel and give them counsel. And so the key to us is us having those relationships with people that structurally sound. So the first thing I want to do is if I plan to go to college and my best friend is saying, well, I don't even like school, I don't want to do this, then maybe we should be friends, but maybe I should try to get together with somebody who has plans of going a little bit farther, and we can kind of build and encourage each other along the way.
Absolutely.
So that's one of the first things that you want to do is you look at check yourself, and a lot of times, especially in the church, and I hear this all the time, and I'm probably gonna get a big backlash from my people, that people that follow me and watch it. But you don't have to go to a church because that's where your mother and your grandmother and all of those went. You know, it just doesn't have to be. Or you don't have to work at a job because your mother, your grandmother, or whatever, that's what they did. Or you don't have to be on welfare because that's what your mother, your grandmother, or whatever, that's what they did.
You got some people saying, "What, Pastor? What?"
You have to break out of that. So you got to look at what's best and follow that. You know,
that pattern.
We got to break the pattern, and we got to, you know. I stepped out on faith a lot of times. We started out as a church in one room that seated about 30 people. And literally, it was me and my wife and like 3 other people. And on Saturday, I would sit